Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our podcast, Good to Know Shreveport Bossier. We focus on all the fun, good, positive things going on around the Arklatex in the Shreveport Bossier community. My name is Jeff Mindfor. I'm your co-host today. Over here to my right is Paul Reeser. He's a member of the Committee of 100 on the Board of Directors for the Committee of 100, so he's a big deal. Believe me when I tell you that. And as always, Paul's here to introduce our special guest today.
At least you didn't introduce me as unemployed like you usually do. So, you know, there's so many good things going on around Shreveport and North Louisiana. And one thing that I'm excited about, I just found out really all about the other day, is Volunteers of America. Now, Volunteers of America is one of the nation's largest and most comprehensive human services organization. It's known as the Church Without Walls. And they do so many good things with so many different groups of people. So we're excited today. We have the President CEO, Miss Carolyn Hammond, here to tell us about it. Jeff, you're going to be blown away with this.
I'm very curious because I've already found out a few things that, well, you call it a misnomer, and it just led me down the trail, and I'm like, which path do I take here?
We're 10 minutes late starting recording because you were so amazed.
But
Carolyn's here, by the way, actually, so thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So
I'm glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Volunteers of America.
Sure. Well, I think, you know, Volunteers of America North Louisiana is one of the best kept secrets in Shreveport and all across North Louisiana. So Volunteers of America, we've been here since 1935. We are part of our national organization, which was founded in 1896. But we've been in this community since 1935, and we actually started as a maternity home for women in need. And we have continued to identify what our community's needs are, and we build our programs around our community's needs to serve men, women, and children all across North Louisiana who have specific needs. And specifically, we have 4 distinct populations that we work with, and we work with children and families, veterans, individuals with disabilities, and seniors.
And just let me throw in, because it seems overwhelming. Like, there's so many things. How can you even begin to touch? But I know even though it's a lot of very benevolent causes that you're so compassionate about, you're also very data driven.
We are.
And you make sure that you're being effective with the dollars, and you're a very large organization. So
we are.
Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. There's a lot of CEOs that listen, but this is not just, I hope we do some good. You guys are actually making an impact.
Well, before we get into all the specifics, I need you to kind of clarify here, as we were talking before we began. You're Volunteers of America,
correct?
But you're not volunteers.
Correct.
So that's definitely confusing. So clear it up.
Well, and we actually have, so Volunteers of America, actually we have 375 staff members. Wow. And so we're a pretty large organization, and our name is misleading. A lot of people do believe that, oh, well, they're a volunteer organization, or they help find volunteers to help staff different events. Well, that's actually, while it is in our name and while volunteers are crucial to what we do, we are paid staff that operate close to 40 different programs in Shreveport and North Louisiana. And last year, we served approximately 8,000 men, women, and children. So while we do use volunteers to help create more opportunities for the individuals we serve to be successful, we have paid staff. And so a lot of people believe that we are a volunteer organization. Absolutely.
So if local people around here would, to give them some context to what everyone's probably heard of, is the Cherish the Children breakfast. Yes. So I went to that last week. It was amazing. There was like 1,000 people at that breakfast. It was 8 o'clock in the morning.
Not quite 1,000.
It had to be pushing 1,000 though, wasn't it?
It was about 850 people.
Close
correct.
Because
it was a full
we round
room.
up on TV.
No, we call that 2,000. No, but it was remarkable. It was a great presentation, and it was a room of very influential people. Obviously, they'd let anybody in, Jeff, because I was able to get in.
Yeah, clearly.
But it was a remarkable breakfast, and a lot of people have heard of that. So what does the Cherish the Children event serve?
Sure. Well, the Cherish the Children event is our fundraiser that we hold annually, and it is our opportunity to ask the community to support the work we do within Volunteers of America. So it's to support those 8,000 people and those 40 programs. And so once a year, that's when we actually invite people to come and invest in our work. But 12 months out of the year, we invite people to come and learn about Volunteers of America and learn more about what we do. We have monthly tours, and they're called Hope Begins Here tours. They can be found on our website, but we hold them on, typically it's the first Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. and we feature a different program. And so it's a great opportunity if you know nothing about Volunteers of America, or you're looking to get plugged in or connected some way. It's a great opportunity to come for 30, 45 minutes, no longer than an hour, come and learn about what we do, meet some of our board leadership, because we typically always have a board member present, and then also hear about how Volunteers of America is making a difference in a person's life. We always have a client tell their story.
So you don't send volunteers to my softball game.
I
Hey,
do
send me
not.
some, but you do help people who do want to learn how to volunteer. They can
Absolutely.
come, because you do have a lot of volunteers that work with you.
Absolutely. And as Paul, as you heard of the Cherished Children of God breakfast last week, Robert Dean was he spoke and ended our breakfast, and he shared about volunteering. And so we are looking for individuals to volunteer and give up their time to help the clients we work with. So we do a tremendous amount of work in schools, in Caddo Parish schools. We have a great partnership with Dr. Gorey and the Caddo Parish schools. We operate in-school programs as well as after-school programs.
Nice.
So we always need volunteers to come and work with those students. And we use the term tutoring, but we don't want the word tutor to scare anyone. You don't have to be a mathematician to come and tutor.
Okay.
Sometimes it can just come and do flashcards with a student. Sometimes it's sitting and reading with a student or having a student read to you. Some days it's just, how is your day going? And just letting that child talk and feel connection.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with your organization. Sounds like terrific work you guys do, but it also seems like your name might be a little confusing to people that, like me, that
Sure.
aren't aware of your organization.
Sure.
So, would it be helpful if you were to change the name a little bit?
Well, we're probably not going to
since
change our name.
1869.
Okay.
After 125 years, we're
Yeah.
probably not going to change the
That's
name.
not quite enough. I think you need another 125. But no, I was just curious. I just
We could go into any one of these topics forever. I get so excited at this breakfast. So Robert Dean's my accountant. So that's how I got in. He set me at a table up front.
okay, somebody that's really influential.
Someone that actually can get in easy. But so he's an accountant. He's an old guy like me, 50-something. But for years and
Speak for
years,
yourself.
I mean, not old like you,
You're
but
a baby,
he's old
yeah.
guy. But so explain that tutoring thing, like a guy that's a accountant, very busy guy, but one night a week or something like that.
Correct.
Whatever, he's
So-
committed to going and tutor these
Sure.
kids. These are like at-risk kids, or who are these kids?
Well, let me start
And
with
by
your last
tutoring,
question.
He said
Yeah.
he was an accountant, but he wouldn't trust himself to tutor above fourth grade.
Sure. Well, and let
Which
me
made me
speak
nervous.
about speak about especially if he's your CPA, right? Well, and let me talk a little bit about the students that we work with. So when we partnered with Dr. Gorey and Caddo Parish Schools, and we've been doing after-school work for over 30 years. And initially, it was really focusing on students that may not have access to all the opportunities that maybe our children have access to. And so we really wanted to focus on children who needed a little extra help in the after-school hours. And with our new program, which Robert spoke about, our Communities in Schools program. Communities in Schools is a national organization that we are now officially their first licensed partner to implement their model of what's called integrated student supports. So we work with students during the school day who are struggling and who are at risk of potentially dropping out if they don't get interventions. And so when we partnered, we looked at really focusing on those transformation zone schools, those schools that had been low performing and needed some intervention. So that's really, we're in those schools. But to Robert, what Robert's speaking of particularly is HMV, Heard McElroy and Vestal. They actually developed a model that we're taking and we're asking other businesses to consider implementing. And he allows his colleagues to go 1 hour a week to a school during a defined time that's determined by the school and the business to go and tutor. And it's not even a full hour, actually. It's usually about 45, 50 minutes that they go sit with a student in which HMV has done to really make sure this works is they take one child and then they have 2 employees assigned to that child. So maybe you can't go this Tuesday, but you can go this Tuesday. And so that student always has an adult showing up. And we all know the consistency in a student's life is important. And so what their model is really what we want to take to scale and share with other businesses.
I'm curious how classroom teachers respond to this. I would think that they would like it.
They do, and it really gives, what it allows is typically we're seeing students who are behind grade level, the lowest performing students who really do need some extra supports. So it allows us to work with that student, pull them out for it's only a small portion of that teacher's day, but pull them out, work with them.
But it's helpful.
And helps them, absolutely. And we've seen great response from the principals. The principals really enjoy it, but I will tell you, if you ask any of our volunteers that do this, they'll tell you, I get so much more out of it than the students get. Yeah, for sure.
So how do people? Normally, Paul will ask this question, but I'm curious. How do people avail themselves of your services? How do they get in contact with you?
Sure. For the clients, how do they get? So we have a lot of eligibility requirements for our different programs. So again, we do operate about 40 different programs. We are very fortunate that we do receive a ton of support from the federal government to operate our programs, but we have to fundraise what the federal government doesn't cover. So a lot of those programs. So I'll take our veterans for example. The VA. We work with the VA, and they have to be referred to us from the Veterans Administration to qualify for our programs. So there are some eligibility guidelines, but typically, if someone is looking for assistance, we ask them just to call our office and ask. Just call our office, and if we can't help them, we will try to refer them to an organization that can assist them.
So when they call, is there certain procedures, screenings that you go through?
We do, absolutely, to determine if they're eligible for our programs. Absolutely.
All right.
I mean, what kind of eligibility are you looking for? I mean, who is going to call? What veteran is going to call up your organization and look for assistance?
Well, so we have a program. So a perfect example is we have a program. It's called the Supportive Services for Veteran Families. So that is for a veteran who is either has received eviction notices and is about to be evicted from their apartment, or they are homeless, and we can help either keep them in their existing home or get them rehoused quickly. So that's what we would help a veteran with. We have a program. It's called Safe Haven, and it's a low barrier shelter for veterans to come to, so they are able to get off the street and get some assistance and work. And our staff really build relationship with those veterans to get them to a point where maybe they're ready to go into a more structured program. And so we've got those programs, and we have a transitional living program for our veterans. Now those individuals are homeless, but they are referred to us from the Veterans Administration. But we do more than veterans and children and families. We also work with seniors. And one thing I haven't shared, at the core of everything we do is housing, making sure individuals have housing, and then provide the wraparound supports that they need to stay in their housing and be successful. And then also behavioral health. And Paul, you might have heard this last week. I believe we're in the midst of a nationwide mental health crisis. We have a lot going on, and a lot of it is unaddressed mental health needs. And so we do a lot around behavioral health with both adults and children. And so we are working to layer services for individuals that find their way to us to get them into behavioral health services and address those unmet behavioral health needs.
What's a disqualifier? If someone seeks out your services and you do your program to see if they're a good client for you or not, what would disqualify them?
Well, the very first thing would be a waiting list, because our waiting list does grow, and so our housing waiting list is unfortunately very long. People are in need of affordable housing, and so that would be, it wouldn't be a disqualifier, but it would put them on a waiting list. Some of our programs, there are income qualifications for, of course, for our veteran services, you have to be a veteran. For some of our housing programs, you do have to have a mental health diagnosis. So it really is very, very program specific what would disqualify someone from being eligible.
Okay.
Well, you had a young lady speak at the mental health, and And just what an amazing success story. So can you talk just a little bit about that young lady? And
Sure. So Jayshana, she actually came to us. We have behavioral health programs in DeSoto Parish, and she was actually at Logansport High School, and there she met a couple of our clinical staff, and they were able to, basically Jayshana was struggling a lot with trying to remain perfect and be successful. And what happened during this process is really we learned that she had some, anxiety, which led to some further problems with her, and just some behavioral health needs, which then eventually led to, she really struggled with depression and even had some suicidal thoughts. And so we were able to intervene and provide her with some, coping mechanisms, as well as getting her connected to medical, so she could take the appropriate medication to manage her mental health disease. And she has been very successful. And one of the things I love about her is she wants to break down that stereotype to, for her, she felt like she couldn't tell anyone that she had a mental health problem, or she couldn't keep it all together herself. And she wants to break down the stereotype that it's okay to ask for help and to need help.
Good for her. Clearly there is a problem. You mentioned you thought it was a nationwide mental health problem.
I do.
I mean, you can just look at all the things going on a daily basis with mass shootings, and
Absolutely.
I mean, how do when people come to you, you see that they're struggling with this? I mean, do you reach out to law enforcement, or is there you shy away from that?
Well, we don't believe
try
that we
to help them,
necessarily. Well, that's I guess the way to answer that question is, we believe that we have the staff with the proper training that can intervene where law enforcement doesn't have to be contacted. I can't say that 100% of the time law enforcement wouldn't get involved, but because we have clinical staff on our team, they're able to assess the problem and get the appropriate help that a person might need, and hopefully keep someone out of jail, or even keep someone out of the hospital.
No, I was just curious if
yeah.
you got alarmed on the front end or something.
I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we have to protect our staff and our other clients. But our number one goal is the safety of our clients, and get them the interventions that they need, without having to involve law enforcement or having to go to the hospital.
All right, well,
And I will share, and you mentioned at the very beginning, we are very data driven. We believe that's one of the things that sets us apart. We don't just report goals. We don't just rattle off we really report outcomes, how we are making a difference in an individual's life, not just an output. And so with that, we're very proud of the fact that with our behavioral health program, we keep people out of the hospital, and that's immense savings to the state of Louisiana. If people aren't going to the hospital, we're saving money. So we're very proud of the interventions that we're able to provide clients with mental health. And of course, obviously, our veterans and our senior services as well. So we are very proud of the outcomes that we have, and reporting on those and sharing those with the community to let people know this is who Volunteers of America is, and this is what Volunteers of America does.
Nice. Is there couple of success stories that pop to the top and that you want to share, or that you're proud of?
Sure. I'm happy to share, and I shared this last week. DeMarcus, who is a high school senior at Booker T. Washington. We recently met DeMarcus. He actually came to an event where we were featuring our Communities in Schools, or CIS program. And when DeMarcus was a freshman at BTW, actually, DeMarcus lost his mom when he was 5 years old. So, he had to deal with losing a parent, someone that really kept him in a line. Imagine losing your mother at such a young age. And so he really had to work through that. And as a high school freshman, he got in trouble a lot. He skipped school a lot. He was fighting a lot. And so he found himself in trouble quite a bit. But thankfully, he met our CIS site coordinator and Miss Wynn, and they were able to really build a relationship. And what we say about CIS, but really all of our programs, it's about relationships. It's all we are a relational type program and organization. We know building relationships that's the way to build trust and then address all the things that people are dealing with. And so through that relationship, he was really able to turn a path, and he is now president of the Boys to Men Club, which is a mentoring organization to other young men at his camp on his school, and he's set to graduate next month. So we're really proud of DeMarcus.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And there's hundreds of kids like DeMarcus that
you're really
able to work
pulling
with.
a lot of kids. You say this young man and this is that, but these are some kids in some rough situations that you're dealing with. So how did this CIS person, you said, do they located at the schools? Or they work
Correct.
with the schools? How do they identify an at-risk child, and how do they approach them?
Yeah.
Because there's got to be, like you said, the trust issue. When you just walk up and say, I'm going to help you, DeMarcus. He's like, oh, sure you are.
So CIS is it is a program that is housed on campus. So the goal of communities and schools is to blend in with the staff, the school staff, and so they report to work there. They are in a classroom, and we work with the administration to determine students that are a best fit for communities and schools, and those are typically kids that they basically, not to get into all the weeds, but they have areas, they're struggling in areas, what we call the ABCs, attendance, behavior, and course performance. They're not coming to school. If they are coming to school, they're always in trouble. Therefore, their grades they're performing pretty lowly in their grades. So we work with the administration, teachers, counselors to identify who those groups of students are. We reach out to the parents to ask permission to work with their child, and then we just build relationships with those students. And it's different on every campus. It looks, we try to find the right person for that campus and the culture and climate of that campus. But typically we find a lot of times kids are asking to be put on the CIS caseload because they get to have a lot of fun. We get to take them on field trips. We get to expose them to different opportunities. And so kids want to know, well, what is that room? How do I go to that room? When they see tutors show up, they want to say, hey, when do I get to get tutored? So we do see a lot of interest in our communities and schools program. But again, there's a waiting list. We can serve approximately 50 kids to one site coordinator. Some of our larger campuses, we do have 2 site coordinators on the campus. But there's while we are serving 50 kids, there's 50 more kids that could take their place today.
Sure. And you said you have to have the parents' permission to work with their kid.
We do.
Did any parents ever say no? You can't?
We have, but I would say 98% of the time we do not meet a lot of resistance.
That was probably they probably don't understand.
Exactly. I think a lot of time it's they don't quite understand what it is. And again, kind of going back to Jay Shauna, and maybe people think, oh, it's counseling, and that stereotype that sometimes comes with counseling and behavioral health. They think, oh, I don't want my child to have that. But I would say if we have the opportunity to sit down and really visit with a parent, very rarely what parent doesn't want their child to have some extra support?
No, that would.
So it's a misunderstanding usually.
Yeah. No, I know my wife's a first grade teacher. Not here, but it's in Atlanta. Long story, but she is constantly concerned about kids that are falling behind. And you got to serve the kids that are falling behind and the kids that are moving ahead, and how to strike that balance. So this would be to me, this sounds like a terrific mechanism to help that situation out, right?
And I feel like teachers get a really bad rap. And teachers are doing the best they can do. But to your point, when you have 27 kids in a classroom on possibly 27 different levels, that's a lot for a teacher to have to manage. And so what we are not the place of a teacher. We are not academics. We cannot teach. We don't pretend that we can teach. But what we can do is help that teacher with some of the other things that those students are struggling with. And really, CIS is removing those barriers for academic success. So if a student comes in disrupting the class because they haven't had breakfast, send them to our room and we'll give them a granola bar and let them have a breakfast and then go back to class. If it's because they're just having a difficult time managing their behaviors, let us talk with them and work with them on some calming techniques. One of our site coordinators does yoga. And she can actually teach breathing techniques. So there's just a variety of ways that kids don't need to be sent necessarily to the principal's office, but we can help them work through whatever is happening right that moment and then get them back into the classroom ready to learn.
So you're set up in a separate room in
Correct.
all
We
of
are.
these schools?
We are, correct.
Okay. That's got to take a lot of coordinating just to get that all
It does.
worked out.
It does. But again, I can't say enough about our relationship with Caddo Parish Schools. We're so fortunate to them, and they're our partners, and our principals. They want us there. They appreciate us being there. So we're very fortunate.
Nice.
Well, I think not only do we need to get away from the stigma of mental health among the population, the kids, they don't want to talk about it, but also when you're trying to help these schools, it's hard for people to empathize with the conditions these kids are in. It's like, well, that kid's just acting up. Well, if they're hungry, that's huge.
Right.
And I know my wife would leave a note if she left for 10 minutes. You feed him this and this and this. We're going to get pizza, but they're going to get something when they're even when they're with me. But some of these kids come to school hungry and they have no coping mechanisms, and there is a lot of things in their life that are traumatized and scared.
Absolutely.
And these coping things you're teaching them are life-changing. And the young lady that got up, I can't remember her name again, but Jayshana, she was remarkable. And she talked about those coping techniques and how she had to use those. She would escape that, So anyway, it's remarkable, that work. If a person also wants to volunteer, because you don't come volunteer, but you accept volunteers.
Correct.
I don't really want to maybe tutor kids 1 hour a week. What are some other things that I could do or a person could do that if they wanted to come volunteer?
Sure. So we have all walks of life, and everybody we work really hard to figure out what is it someone is comfortable with and find a good fit for them. So we have the people on the front end that actually want to work with clients. So it doesn't have to be children and families. It could be we have a group that comes and plays bingo and bowls and does different activities with our seniors that live at South Point Place. We have individuals who bring meals to our veterans home and provide a meal for our veterans home. We have individuals who want to be behind the scenes. They don't necessarily want to do anything directly with a client, and maybe they do a hygiene product drive, or maybe they collect socks, or maybe they do something that will benefit the client. So we have a wonderful engagement coordinator, and if someone says, hey, I want to volunteer but I just don't know how, Abigail will walk them through the process and brainstorm with them to figure out where's a good spot for them to fit in.
Nice.
We've got a great, we can find a way to get someone plugged in regardless of what their comfort level is.
Well, speaking of that, do you ever, moving away from the kids, but like the veterans you mentioned, or even the seniors, did they sometimes say, we don't want help, leave us alone? I mean, I'm curious.
Sure, there are people that just want to be there and do what they need to do and move on. And some people don't necessarily want to join the fun activities, and that's fine. We do believe in choice, and this is this is where you are, but we want to allow you to kind of, if you're comfortable doing this, great. If that's not your comfort level, then that's great. But I will say at our senior facility, they're all going to come. They all enjoy. They enjoy the fellowship. They enjoy the laughter. They enjoy being with each other and engaging in fun activities. And so I don't think we see that very often. But there are some people that do kind of want to just keep to themselves, and we respect that. That's your decision.
Okay, I was just curious, because you see stories a lot of times. I was just thinking of like the homeless folks, and people try to approach them and help them, and they just say, no, leave me alone. And I don't know how often that would happen.
Well, and I guess what I'm speaking of is typically if they're in our programs, they're willing to work the program, but maybe they don't want to engage in the activities and the things that we offer. And we do have a homeless street outreach program, and they go for veterans, and they go and engage people. And so again, it's relationship building. So maybe you're not ready to come today, but I met you. This is who I am. When you're ready, we're here. And so, sometimes it takes just that constant seeing that person. They keep coming back. They keep asking me how I'm doing. Maybe now I'm ready to go.
Gotcha.
Building the relationship and the trust over time. Well, so it's Volunteers of America North Louisiana. So how far across North Louisiana do you go?
So we are from the Texas state line to the Mississippi state line, and then we are down to right above Alexandria. So we serve.
Do you have one of these breakfasts in Monroe and
We
Alexandria?
don't. Actually, our presence is really in Shreveport, Bossier, and DeSoto Parish. We are, we have the opportunity to cover all of North Louisiana. We do serve some veterans from the Monroe area, but they are coming over to us. We're not necessarily going to them, they're coming to us. And so we work with people from all over. We, I would say maybe a 5 to 10 year plan. We would look to maybe take some of our programs that have been successful here. What could they work in Monroe? What would they look like in Monroe? So we are, it is definitely on our 5 to 10 year plan of what could it look like to expand over to the eastern part of the state.
We're down to our final 30 seconds, so
Okay.
people want to get involved with your organization.
Yes.
Tell us how they can do it.
Sure, they can visit our website, www.voanorthla.org, or they can just call us, 318-218, give me my cell phone, 318-221-2669.
You can do that again.
318-221-2669. And follow us on social media. We're on every social media platform, and that's a great way to learn about opportunities, ways to get plugged in.
All right, say that website one more time.
www.voanorthla.org.
Okay, northla.org.
Correct.
Got it. All right, well, thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
Really
Tremendous
nice.
amount of work
Yeah.
you guys do.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all letting us share about it.
You got it. Very impressive. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Good to Know Shreveport Bossier. We appreciate you being with us. And as always, these things are good to know. Have a good one, everybody.